How Kodak destroyed itself by hiding its own invention. Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975. When the engineer showed it to management, they told him to hide it and never speak about it again. 20 years later, digital photography destroyed the company. How does a company invent the future and then lose everything because of it? Today, we are breaking this story down into 4 parts. Part 1. How Kodak became one of the most powerful companies in American history. Part 2. The invention that changed everything and the decision that followed. Part 3. The decades Kodak spent looking the other way while the world moved on. And Part 4. The collapse and the lesson every business needs to hear. Let's get into it. Part 1. Kodak ruled the world. To understand how catastrophic Kodak's fall was, you first need to understand how completely they dominated their industry. Kodak was not just a successful photography company. For most of the 20th century, Kodak was photography, full stop. It started in 1888, when George Eastman founded the company with one mission: make photography accessible to ordinary people. Before Eastman, taking a photo required serious technical knowledge and expensive equipment. It was reserved for professionals and hobbyists. Eastman changed everything. He developed roll film, he designed cameras anyone could use, and he built a slogan that captured it perfectly. You press the button, we do the rest, and people loved it. Families used Kodak to capture birthdays and holidays and graduations. The name Kodak became so synonymous with photography that people did not say they were taking a photo. They said they were taking a Kodak. By the 1970s, Kodak controlled roughly 90% of film sales in America and approximately 85% of camera sales. Tens of millions of families around the world depended on Kodak to preserve their most important memories. The company was not just successful, it was untouchable. Or so everyone thought. Because one young engineer sitting in a Kodak laboratory was about to build something that would eventually destroy the very company that employed him. Part 2. The Invention and the Decision. In 1975, a 24-year-old Kodak engineer named Steven Sasson was given a routine assignment. Experiment with a new electronic image sensor and see what it could do. What happened next was anything but routine. Working with spare parts, a borrowed camera lens, and a cassette tape recorder, Sasson built something the world had never seen. The first digital camera. By today's standards, it was not impressive. It weighed nearly 8 pounds. It took 23 seconds to capture a single image. The resolution was just 0.01 megapixels. But it worked. For the first time in history, a photograph could exist without film. No chemicals, no darkroom, no processing. Sasson knew immediately what this meant, and he brought it to Kodak's senior executives to show them what he had built. You might be wondering, how did the most powerful photography company on Earth react to seeing the first ever digital camera? They told him to keep it quiet. Not because they did not understand it, but because they understood it perfectly. And what they understood terrified them. Kodak's entire business model was built not on cameras, but on everything that happened after you took a photo. Film sales, developing fees, printing costs, a continuous stream of recurring revenue flowing back to Kodak again and again. Digital photography eliminated every single one of those revenue streams in one shot. No film, no processing, no prints, just an image on a screen. So when executives looked at that camera, they were not seeing an exciting new product. They were seeing a machine designed to destroy their most profitable business. And at that moment, the film business was spectacularly profitable. Extraordinary margins. Wall Street loved the numbers. Shareholders loved the dividends. Why would any rational leader blow all of that up to chase an uncertain future built around technology that barely existed? That was the logic. And in the short term, it was not entirely unreasonable. But while Kodak was protecting its present, the rest of the world was quietly building its future. Part 3. They saw the future and ignored it. Throughout the 1980s and into the 1990s, Kodak kept pouring investment into film. They upgraded factories, expanded product lines, ran massive advertising campaigns celebrating the magic of capturing memories on film, and the profits kept coming. For a while. But competitors were not standing still. Sony was moving into digital imaging. Canon was developing the technology, Nikon was preparing to move, and underneath all of it, the technology was improving rapidly, getting cheaper and faster and more capable every year. Kodak was not oblivious. They had some of the best engineers in the world. They were running internal studies on digital photography. They understood exactly what it could eventually do. You might be wondering, if Kodak knew all of this, why didn't they act? Here is the honest answer. The film business was still making too much money. Every year, Kodak looked at strong profits from film. Every year, the case for disrupting their own model got harder to make internally. Every year, the people arguing for bold action had to fight against people pointing at healthy current earnings. This is what business experts call the innovator's dilemma. The very success that makes a company powerful is the same success that makes it nearly impossible to take the risks necessary to stay powerful. Kodak understood digital photography better than almost anyone on Earth. And that understanding paralyzed them. By the early 2000s, the dam broke. Digital cameras became mainstream. The convenience was too compelling. Instant photos, no waiting, no cost per shot. In a painful irony, Kodak did eventually enter the digital camera market, and for a brief period they became one of the best-selling digital camera brands in America. But digital cameras were nowhere near as profitable as film. The recurring revenue model was gone forever. You sold someone a camera once, and that was largely it. And then smartphones arrived and finished the job. Suddenly, people did not even need a dedicated camera. The device already in their pocket took perfectly good photos. Digital camera sales collapsed almost as quickly as film sales had. Kodak found itself trapped between two dying businesses with no clear path forward. Part 4. The Collapse and the Lesson. In January 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy, a company once worth tens of billions of dollars, a company that had employed over 140,000 people at its peak, a company whose name had been synonymous with one of the most universal human experiences, preserving memories, for over a century. Gone. Not because they lacked talent, not because they lacked resources, not because they failed to understand what was happening, but because they were too afraid of losing what they had to reach for what they could become. Most people hear the Kodak story and conclude the lesson is about innovation. Stay innovative. Embrace new technology. Don't get left behind. But that misses the deeper truth. Kodak was innovative. They invented the digital camera. The problem was never a lack of innovation. The problem was a lack of courage. The courage to look at your most profitable business and say, this will not last forever, and we need to be the ones who replace it before someone else does. That kind of courage is extraordinarily rare, because it requires a company to voluntarily hurt itself today in order to survive tomorrow. The biggest threat to a successful company is almost never the competition. It is success itself. Because the things that make you rich today have a way of blinding you to what will keep you relevant tomorrow. Kodak did not lose because they could not see the future. They lost because they could see it, and they were afraid of it. The next time you hear about a dominant company dismissing an emerging technology as too small or too risky to take seriously, remember Kodak. Remember that the engineer who invented digital photography worked for the company that digital photography destroyed. The most dangerous position in business is not being behind the curve. It is being so far ahead of the curve that you have the power to shape the future, and choosing not to. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Brand Autopsy Every week, we uncover the real stories behind the biggest business successes, failures, and decisions that changed history forever. Because the truth is almost always more interesting than the headlines.